けねえからあいつに勝って大健康になる日まで。
Roronoa Zoro is a deep, complex, and dynamic character who has been continuously devolving into stoicism. Zoro is a character who's tender on the inside, but puts up a really rough exterior that normally doesn't allow people to get close to him. Even though he has this barrier, he still always manages to show affection in his own way. He normally shows his true feelings by taking things on all by himself, taking the pain for his friends, sacrificing his own body, life, and even dreams for the sake of others. And keep in mind the scope of his dreams. Zoro wants to be the strongest swordsman ever, someone so great that his name is known throughout the heavens. It's a very lofty goal that he will undoubtedly achieve, but not without a cost. His dreams and intense ambition to achieve his goal are diametrically opposed with his ideologies on life and willingness to give up everything at the blink of an eye just for the sake of others. These clashing philosophies transformed him into a loner in the character that he is today. While he may be a lot more emotionally isolated and seemingly bland post-time skip, he traded his emotions for the immense power to overwhelm. And although he may have immense strength, a lofty dream, an indomitable spirit, and the willpower to overwhelm, he's still missing something very important. Zoro still has one last huge mental hurdle to overcome before he can become the strongest, or before he can even awaken the color of the Supreme King. While everything Zoro's done in his life has helped him tremendously and gotten him this strong, he will still never achieve his dream or true potential if things remain the way they are now. And Zoro's main issue is that unlike every other conqueror, Zoro lacks confidence in his own ability. While initially this may seem weird or even blasphemous, Zoro really isn't someone who's super confident in himself. That's not where his power comes from. So let's take Luffy for example. Monkey D. Luffy is a supreme king through and through. Although at the beginning of the series, Luffy was nowhere near the upper echelon of the verse in terms of power. He was a mere plankton in the vast ocean that is One Piece. And even though he was weak, small, and insignificant in the grand scheme of things, he still had complete confidence in not only his ability, but also complete confidence in the strength, versatility, and spirit of his crew. And almost every other conqueror is the same way. They may not be the absolute pinnacle of strength, but they all seemingly never doubt themselves in a major way. And this is what makes Zoro very unique. While he is very powerful now, this overwhelming strength comes from a place of his weakness, fear, and pain rather than confidence in his own abilities. His current strength didn't come from his ambitions, goals, or even dreams. It stems from his numerous complete and utter defeats. So to understand Zoro, his limits, his constant mental battles, his continuous emotional dilemma, his gradual descent into complete stoicism, we need to understand where he came from, what makes him tick, and what caused him to change. This is the story of the next world's strongest swordsman. The story of a man who will make his dream, ambition, and presence known throughout the heavens. The story of a samurai who will overcome his emotional and mental dilemma. This is the story of Roronoa Zoro. Not much is known about Zoro's birth, family, or heritage, but he was orphaned at an early age, which is most likely the first thing that led Zoro down a path of isolation. We can even argue that Zoro being orphaned is the first thing that led to his desire for strength. He didn't have anyone to take care of him and needed to be strong in order to just survive. And this initial form of his strength and desire to be strong came out of a place of fear and isolation rather than a place of overwhelming confidence. Flash forward a while, around 12 years or so before the beginning of One Piece when Zoro was only 7. He would go village to village challenging dojos, defeating them single-handedly until he arrived at the Shimotsuki village. Upon his arrival, he challenged the head of the dojo, Koshiro. He said that he would take over the dojo if he won, but he would become a student if he lost. Instead of fighting Zoro, Koshiro told him that he must fight his daughter, Kuina. So Zoro put 3 swords in his mouth and 3 in each hand just to ultimately get one shot by Kuina. And this marked Zoro's first defeat. This loss would lead him down a path towards strength, but not one of isolation or sadness, at least not yet. Zoro would resolve himself to train and eventually defeat Kuina. He trained non-stop for a year, growing stronger and stronger, developing his 2-sword style, but note, not 3-sword style just yet. At this point, he could easily defeat all of the boys and even most of the adults, but he would still lose to Kuina. He challenged her 2,000 more times and hadn't won or even drawn a single belt, and after his 2,000th loss, he resolved to fight her for real using real swords later that night. When the time came, he would challenge Kuina at dawn to their 2001st fight. She used her Wataiti Monji and fought Zoro, easily winning yet again. But after their fight, something changed. Kuina wasn't happy or even smug after winning. This time she was sad. Kuina was sulking, saying that her dad told her she could never become the strongest because no matter how hard she tried, she was just a woman. She also came to the conclusion that Zoro would surpass her soon just because he was male. Zoro instantly rejected this notion. It went against everything he stood for. He didn't want to be gifted anything just for being born a certain way. He said that they would compete and one of them would be the world's strongest swordsman one day. And after firming his resolve, he also thought that since he couldn't beat Kuina with only 2 swords, he would try using 3. From this day forward, Zoro continued to train, now perfecting his 3-sword style. And one day while training, Zoro learned that Kuina had died. And at this point, Zoro was ultimately and completely defeated. He didn't just lose a friend, he also lost an obstacle. Kuina was a person that he dedicated so much time training just to defeat, but he could now never overcome. He turned his sadness into anger and continued to train, growing stronger and stronger, soon being able to defeat everyone in the dojo. And somewhere along the way, he ended up talking to Koshiro asking for Kuina's sword. Zoro said that he would be the strongest and that he would get stronger for her too. This is where he made his dreams known, saying that he would be so strong that his power and presence would touch the heavens so that she could see him. He continued to train for a couple more years and finally left the village, setting out to become the strongest at the age of 16. And this marked the beginning of his journey. The start of his path to becoming the strongest, the first point where he lost almost everything, becoming a loner, becoming isolated, but gaining power as a trade-off. 3 years later, at the beginning of the story, Zoro meets our protagonist Monkey D. Luffy while hanging from a cross, being starved for a month. And this is where we get the first major insight on Zoro's character. Oda beautifully displays the duality of Zoro through Kobe. He uses Kobe as sort of a person to display the general public perception of Zoro in the world. And just like Kobe, the rest of the outside world views Zoro as some kind of beast. He's this monster that is uncontrollable, dangerous, and violent. And Zoro plays into the facade a little more when Rika offers him a rice ball. Instead of accepting, he just tells her to go away, so it seems like Zoro truly is just this mean guy. But after she leaves, Luffy feeds him the rice ball off the ground, and Zoro tells him to inform Rika that he enjoyed the meal, showing that Zoro really does care, but he often acts in order to protect others. Later that day, once Luffy leaves, Rika explains what really happened. Helmeppo had a pet wolf running wild, terrorizing civilians, and Zoro killed it to protect everyone. He could have defeated Helmeppo, Axe-Hand Morgan, and just all the other marines right there and then. But he realized that the entire town would take the blame, and all of the civilians would get wiped out by marines if he were to escape. So he did what Zoro does best. He took on the pain for everyone else, taking Helmeppo's deal, starving himself for 30 days to clear his name and the rest of the town. This obviously fell through as you would expect, but after talking with Luffy, we get the next major development with Zoro. He fully gives in to his goal and desires, saying that he would be the world's strongest swordsman no matter what, even if he had to drag his name through the mud to do so. But this statement in itself is also more nuanced than you initially expect. Zoro still has standards for himself and how he will conduct himself, but he doesn't care how the outside world views him, and he will no longer respect marines or people that don't deserve such respect. So after reconfirming his resolve, he became the first member of the future Pirate King crew, but he also told Luffy that he would have to kill him if he ever got in the way of his goal. Throughout the next couple arcs of the story, Zoro remained fairly stoic. Luffy's antics start to rub off on him a bit, and he becomes a lot more friendly while still remaining serious in battle. Unfortunately, his whole mentality of taking on the world by himself still hasn't changed. For example, at the beginning of Orange Town when Luffy gets locked in a cage and Zoro gets stabbed in the stomach, taking some major damage. but he still puts himself on the line. He picks up the entire cage holding Luffy and trudges on, carrying Luffy to safety, only damaging himself more and more in the process until eventually escaping, but also passing out. And this is basically Zoro through and through. The same pattern repeats itself in Syrup Village. No matter how injured or beaten up he is, he always keeps pushing forward, alleviating as much stress and work from Luffy as possible. While Zoro is getting more and more friendly with the crew, joking around more, starting to finally open up and care for people, everything changes in an instant. In the middle of Baratie, Mihawk arrives, the current world's strongest swordsman, the man that Zoro must surpass to become the next strongest. Essentially, his goal, his entire dream, and everything his life has been building up to was standing right in front of him. So Zoro in his mind made the only rational decision. He decided to fight him. And Zoro gets absolutely destroyed. His whole worldview is shattered. Mihawk handles him with a tiny dagger while Zoro is still trying his hardest with his 3 swords. And as the fight continues, Zoro just cannot fathom that there is such a large difference between their strength. He refuses to believe that this is even a possibility. Zoro continues and fights like such a beast with such a wild ferocity that Mihawk just can't believe it. He wonders what's fueling him, but we all know it's his dream. He trained his whole life to defeat Mihawk, and now he's fighting for more than just himself. He was also fighting for Kuina's dreams. So during the fight, he never gives up. He gets stabbed but refuses to back up, saying that he would rather die than give up on his dreams. So he continues to fight Mihawk, taking one final blow and falling into the ocean. Zoro eventually gets up and makes a promise to Luffy. He tells him that he would never lose again. And this is the second complete defeat of Roronoa Zoro. The second time that his mindset has been completely shattered. Something that he's been working towards forever was completely destroyed. The second of a long list of events that could make or break a character, and just so happened to break Roronoa. Every time that Zoro gets defeated, it almost becomes a mental reset for his growth and character. It seems like he starts to loosen up, goofs around, becomes more confident than he loses. And this just serves to reinforce the idea that he should be fearful and use defeat to fuel his growth. And Arlong Park is just more of the same. It's more of the self-sacrificial side of Zoro. After being injured by Mihawk in the previous arc, which was an injury that should have had any normal person dead, he continues to fight. He easily defeated Hachan, but with his injuries, Arlong was just too much for him. He knew this, and he essentially threw himself at Arlong even though he had no chance of winning. He would sacrifice his life and his dream just to give Luffy a chance to fight, and provide whatever support he could. Zoro's a person that just refuses to give up. Even though he knows his captain is capable, he will do everything possible just to give him the slightest advantage, even if it means losing his own life. Things remain pretty tame for Zoro for the next couple arcs, but everything changes at Little Garden because this is the arc where Zoro suffers his third major defeat. Zoro had loosened up a bit. He started goofing around more with his crew, and he was rewarded by getting caught by Mr. 3. Mr. 3 even tells him that it seems like the crew wasn't taking him seriously. He had to get saved by Luffy, and after they left Little Garden, Zoro was right back to training despite his injury. He blamed himself for everything, saying that if he could cut the wax there wouldn't be a problem, and that he must get stronger and it has to happen now. But ultimately, the thing that I want to hone in on is the fact that Zoro said he's too weak. That's the major flaw with Zoro's character. No matter how strong he gets, he'll still feel like he's too weak. And while this can be something very positive and very beneficial for always progressing and always getting stronger, Zoro uses it as fear to fuel instead of confidence and bravado to truly become the strongest. And Little Garden marked Zoro's third major defeat. Zoro's next loss was to Rob Lucci in Water 7, but this didn't really impact him too much. However, Zoro's character did take another major shift in Thriller Bark. After defeating Ryuma, Zoro was beat up along with the rest of his crew, and Luffy was completely passed out. And when everyone was completely beat up, just barely surviving the previous battle, the warlord Kuma showed up, trying to convince the crew to give up Luffy. They all obviously denied this, then Kuma sent out an Ursus shock, obliterating the island and knocking everyone out besides Zoro. But as I've already established, Zoro isn't the type of character who would give up a comrade, and Kuma is someone that Zoro has no chance of defeating, especially not in his current state. In fact, Kuma might be someone that the Straw Hats couldn't beat when they all teamed up and worked together. But unfortunately for Zoro, as I've already established, he's not the type of character who would give up a comrade. So he takes on everything by himself, launches an attack at Kuma, blitzing him, hitting him with his Shishi Son Son. He cuts him, but he does no lasting damage. Zoro realizes that the only way he would be able to save Luffy is by trading his own life. He tells Kuma that instead of taking his captain, they should take the life of the man who would become the world's strongest swordsman. So at this point, Zoro was completely prepared to die. Sanji tried to step in, but Zoro knocked him out, thinking that he was the only one who could do this. So Kuma took all of Luffy's pain and gave it to Zoro. He stood there, surrounded by his own blood, and a couple hours later when Sanji woke up and asked him what happened, he simply responded with, "Nothing happened." His statement is much more intricate than you may initially think. There were plenty of reasons why Zoro responded this way. The first is blatantly shown to us in that he acted this way as to not upset Luffy. But the second is that it isn't something to be proud of. Zoro gave away his life, giving up his dreams and ambitions to save a friend. And even after giving away everything, he didn't really succeed. At the end of the day, Zoro was completely defeated by Kuma. While initially it may seem like Zoro had won or he accomplished some sort of major feat, all he really did was allow his crew to survive. While initially it may seem like this is some kind of major feat and something that Zoro should be super proud of, he really wasn't. While him surviving may have been impressive, all he did was survive. It's not like he beat Kuma. In fact, Kuma allowed him to live when he could have wiped out his entire crew at any instant. So this marked Zoro's fourth major defeat. In Sabaody Archipelago, Zoro was still injured from Thriller Bark, but with no time to rest, he was back in action. Teaming up with the rest of the Straw Hats, they were able to easily defeat a single pacifista while all working together. But then Kizaru appears one-shotting Zoro, and he would have killed him if Rayleigh didn't appear to save him, so Zoro was completely outclassed. And even though he was near death, he got up and tried to fight the real Kuma. But he was easily sent away along with the rest of his crew, and this marked Zoro's fifth major defeat. And this time his weakness caused more than just his personal defeat. It also caused the complete annihilation of his crew. And this was the final tipping point for Zoro, the point where he could no longer be the same person he was, which is why he did the unthinkable, subjugating himself to Mihawk, the man that he vowed to defeat. He no longer cared what happened, he just needed to get stronger so he could protect what really mattered to him. From this point forward, Zoro became completely different. While he still did have fun from time to time like any normal person was, we didn't really see the same gags or comedic or soft side from Zoro that we saw pre-time skip. This is because he really had no time for it. At this point, all Zoro valued was becoming stronger to achieve his goals. And this desire was fueled due to the fear of losing his friends or being defeated again. And post-time skip, he hasn't lost since. But this isn't the way for Zoro to get what he truly desires. Zoro will never become the strongest or unlock the color of the Supreme King if he keeps getting strong in this way. He needs to truly become a conqueror, not be held back by anything or anyone. He can't be a victim of his own fear. He needs to become confident and sure of his own abilities. And when this happens, Zoro will become the strongest.